I'm glad you actually brought up that point about families canceling things. I did see our mutual friend Carol Markowitz. She came out and she said the sound you hear is a bunch of families canceling Christmas plans to New York. I mean, New York is famously, well, at least used to be a really, really cool place around Christmas time. Surely, I mean, all my thoughts on mandates aside, surely the businesses of New York have to be just about broken by all this, right, Inez? I mean, I realize this is a big finance city. It's a big port city. Tourist dollars mean a lot for New York, and they surely aren't coming in as fast as they used to.
Well, and they're deputizing businesses to enforce something unpopular, right? So one of the clever parts about this, or diabolically clever parts about this, is that these mandates have been enforced by businesses, right? So the businesses will get fined by the government if they don't do it. So one, the government's offshoring the unpleasant business of actually asking people for their papers, right? So it's not the police doing it. It has to be the businesses, and they have to deal with people upset about it. And it's just sort of offloads the responsibility, but it also obscures who's actually responsible, right? So if you're not following politics and you don't really care, but you don't like some of these mandates and you're sick of being asked for your vax papers everywhere, you blame the businesses because they're the ones directly enforcing this, right? So it obscures the accountability for the government as well, which is, I think, part of the plan, but really does I think it's kind of clever, honestly. It's diabolically clever in terms of offloading the response to businesses rather than to the people responsible for putting the mandate in place.
And as not just New York, but nationwide, obviously we see the condition of cities like San Francisco, again, a formerly beautiful city that has just been trashed. We see Chicago. I know people dog on Chicago now. Chicago is awesome, but at least at one point in time was awesome. The condition of America's cities is not only bad, there's not really a sign it's going to change directions. Eric Adams or no Eric Adams. At what point is there a bottom, Inez, where even Democrats, which are obviously mostly New York, step up and say, okay, we can't live in a sewer. We got to change direction. Is there a bottom for these people?
I'm never sure about this. You would think, and I actually don't think, having lived exclusively in blue cities my entire life. I mean, grew up south of San Francisco, spent a ton of time in San Francisco growing up, lived in Washington, D.C. for many years, and now living in New York City. New York is in some ways the most balanced of these big blue cities in the sense that they have a finance interest here. A lot of people, they're just not focused on politics in the same way that DC is. You can't escape the narrative here. Whereas in DC, it feels like being in North Korea, like literally everywhere. I'm pretty sure there are North Koreans who see Kim Jong-un's face less than just taking a walk around DC. The narrative slaps you in the face in 1,000 different ways. New York City isn't quite like that. And actually, I mean, I go on my neighborhood apps and stuff. People are not taking the rising crime laying down. They're ticked off about it. There's a lot of, F to Bill de Blasio sort of chatter in neighborhood apps. But there is a democratic machine here. That is largely the problem. A lot of these things, as they are in the rest of the country, are institutionalized. So even if Eric Adams comes in with some reasonable rollback of some of these things, some of them are written into law. He's going to be dealing with a very left-wing city council. It truly is sort of institutionalized here. And I what I worry about is what happened in the 70s and 80s, right? Where this spiral of urban life chased everyone who could eventually out. And then you have both a smaller tax base and less money. And you have sort of a concentration of the ideology, right? Where everyone's sane eventually can't live with it anymore and moves out. And then the people who are left go more and more left because there's no common sense counterbalancing. I don't see San Francisco turning around anytime soon, even though it's universally agreed that the city is almost unlivable now. And I love cities and I love San Francisco. But the city, San Francisco, is unlivable now. New York's not there yet, but I worry it will be.
I'm with you. I love cities. I mean, I love the country too. I love it all. But I think cities are awesome, fun places, and I think it hurts the country as a whole. The country I love so much when its major cities are in such a bad condition. And as I think us as the United States of America, I think it looks bad when New York sucks all of a sudden, when Chicago sucks. I think it's a poor reflection of the entire country. I do.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe a little bit parochial, but don't forget that when people visit the United States, they mostly judge us by our cities, right? European, for example, tourists, they judge Americans by New York City, San Francisco, LA, Chicago. And right now we're our flagship cities are headed in the wrong direction. And I'm, as an American, I don't like to hear from family elsewhere or whatever when they come here, oh, like, your cities are so dirty or so crime ridden. How can you be the world's greatest country if you have so many homeless on your street, right? Like, and then having to explain of all of these terrible liberal policies to people from outside of the country. It's embarrassing. I mean, these are the flagship cities of the United States, and like you, I love the country as well. But I think the kind of reflexive anti-urbanism of the right sometimes is not as thoughtful as it should be. This is not how city life has to be. This is a deliberate series of policy choices that has made city life this way.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the first on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.